They laughed at him, called him names, and thought he was an easy target. But when they tried to take it further, they learned the hard way he wasn't just big. He was dangerous. Marcus had heard it all before: the whispers, the stares, the cruel jokes about his weight. But he had learned long ago to let words roll off his back. However, when a group of bullies in the park decided to push things too far, Marcus knew it was time to remind them that appearances can be deceiving. Marcus, a former MMA fighter, had stepped away from the sport a few years ago. He'd shifted his focus to his job and his family, and in the process, he had put on a bit of weight. People around him noticed. But what they didn't see was that, even with the extra pounds, his body still held the strength and skill of a trained fighter. His muscles were just as sharp underneath, even if they weren't as defined as they once were. It was a quiet afternoon at the park when Marcus decided to sit on a bench and enjoy some peace. The sun was shining, the breeze was light, and for a moment, it felt like the world had slowed down. He was lost in his thoughts, just enjoying the break from his busy life. But his calm was short-lived. A group of teenagers had wandered nearby, and he could hear the whispers and stifled laughter. At first, it didn't bother him. He was used to people talking, especially in public spaces. But then one of them, a tall kid with a cocky grin, nudged his friend and said, loud enough for Marcus to hear, "Man, look at this guy. He's one burger away from rolling instead of walking." The group burst into laughter, their snickers bouncing around the park. Marcus didn't flinch, but he could feel the heat of their eyes on him, judging him for his size. Another kid, the one who seemed the most daring, stepped up, shouting over to him, "Hey, big guy, bet you can't even run to that tree without passing out." The group laughed even harder, like it was all just some kind of joke. Marcus stayed still, his hands resting on his knees. He didn't need to react. He didn't need to prove anything. But just as he thought they might move on, the leader of the group picked up a basketball, his grin widening. Without any warning, he threw it hard, the ball smacking against Marcus's chest. "Oops," the kid said, feigning surprise. "Didn't see you there, big man." The others laughed, watching closely, waiting for Marcus to react. Maybe they thought he'd get angry. Maybe they expected him to walk away, muttering something under his breath. What they didn't expect was for Marcus to stand up slowly, his movements steady but deliberate. He took a deep breath, his eyes locking onto the ringleader. The group fell silent for a moment, the laughter dying down as they waited to see what he would do. What happened next was the last thing they could have predicted. Marcus didn't react with anger, not even a hint of frustration. Instead, he smiled, a calm, unsettling smile that didn't seem to fit the situation at all. It wasn't a smile of kindness or amusement. It was almost as if he were inviting them to step up, testing them without saying a word. "You think size means weakness?" Marcus asked, his voice steady, almost too calm. He rolled his shoulders slowly, like he was getting ready for something, but there was no rush in his movements. He looked at the group, all of them standing there, expecting him to back down or get upset. "Tell you what," he said, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Let's play a little game. If any of you can land a single hit on me, I'll leave." The group paused, exchanging quick, uncertain glances. But it didn't take long before the one with the cocky smirk stepped forward, clearly convinced this would be an easy win. "Oh, this is going to be easy," he scoffed, rolling up his sleeves as if preparing for a challenge that he was sure to win. The first bully, smaller than Marcus, but with a lot of confidence, lunged forward, throwing a wild punch that looked more like a flailing swing than an actual attack. But Marcus didn't move an inch. He simply sidestepped with a smooth, effortless motion, and before the bully could even think about what went wrong, Marcus had grabbed his wrist mid-air. The kid's eyes went wide in shock as Marcus twisted his arm just enough to make him yelp in pain, forcing him to drop to one knee. "Is that all you got?" Marcus asked, his voice almost calm enough to be polite. The bully tried to pull away, but Marcus kept his hold firm, not letting him get away. The others hesitated for just a second, unsure if they'd still go through with this. But pride was a powerful thing, and none of them wanted to look weak in front of their friends. One by one, they charged at him, throwing punches that were poorly aimed, their moves sloppy and desperate. Marcus dodged, blocked, and countered each one like he had done it 1,000 times before. He was quick, fluid, and every move he made was controlled. Nothing rushed, but everything calculated. Each failed attempt left the bullies looking more embarrassed than the last. One of them tripped over his own feet, crashing to the ground, while another had his arm pinned behind his back with barely any effort. It didn't take long for the group to realize they were way out of their league. As Marcus effortlessly deflected their attacks, the bullies started backing off, either stumbling away or standing there, frozen in fear, unsure of what to do next. The people who had been watching from the sideline, some of them probably thinking it was just another silly showdown, were now silent, their eyes wide with disbelief. No one was laughing anymore. The sound of the wind, the distant chatter from the playground, and the occasional bird chirping were the only things that broke the silence as they all stared at Marcus in stunned awe. Marcus crouched down next to the ringleader, who was still trying to catch his breath, his chest rising and falling quickly. The guy looked completely stunned, like he couldn't believe what had just happened. Marcus didn't look angry, just calm, like it was no big deal. "You see," Marcus said, his voice quiet but firm, "strength isn't about how big you are. It's about training, control, and knowing when to fight, and when to just walk away." The bully, his face pale and eyes wide, stammered, didn't know." His voice cracked, and he looked down at the ground, clearly feeling smaller than ever. Marcus stood up slowly, brushing his hands together like he was wiping off dirt. "That's the thing. You never bothered to ask. You just assumed things based on how people look. Maybe next time, you'll think twice before jumping to conclusions about someone." The other bullies, who had been hanging back and watching all this go down, looked like they didn't know what to say. They didn't argue. They didn't make excuses. They just stood there, looking embarrassed, nodding without saying a word. Then, without another glance at Marcus, they turned and slunk off, heads down, no longer the loud, confident group they had been just moments before. Word of what happened spread quickly. Some of the bystanders approached Marcus, asking if he taught self-defense classes. Others simply thanked him for standing up to the bullies. As for the group of teens, they never mocked anyone in that park again. In fact, a few of them eventually approached Marcus, asking if he'd be willing to train them. Marcus's story became an inspiration in the community. His quiet strength and ability to turn the situation into a teachable moment showed that true power isn't about hurting others, it's about standing firm and knowing your worth. This story is a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. Underestimating someone based on how they look can lead to serious consequences. More importantly, it teaches us that real strength isn't about proving a point, it's about self-control, confidence, and respect. Subscribe for more powerful stories of resilience, redemption, and unexpected lessons.